And so without further ado, let us say hello to the one and only Dan Lambert, founder, owner of American Top Team. Hello, Dan. How are you?
Hey, Ariel. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I thought you were going to be driving when you're on the program. You're parked right now.
I parked, sat in the passenger side, didn't want the phone vibrating. Didn't want to do that to you. So
Wow.
We're good to go.
You're a real pro. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. Can I be honest with you? I didn't think you would do this
I would hope
interview.
you would always be honest. Aren't you a reporter? Aren't you guys always supposed to be honest?
Here we go. Here we go with this. Okay, to that point, I didn't think you would say yes when I asked you to come on. I really thought you would say, nah, I'm sitting this one out.
Under normal circumstances, I probably would have.
And so why this time? Why do you want to talk this time? Or why were you open to talking?
I want to plug my AEW pay-per-view on Sundays. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Yes, that is right. I did mention it at the top of the show, AEW Revolution going down in Jacksonville this Sunday. They're doing great things. I was tweeting about MJF last week. He's doing incredible stuff. You're still doing incredible stuff. By the way, are you just talent for AEW or are you involved financially as well?
Oh, no. I'm just friends with Tony, having a good time, watching wrestling, being a fan.
So is it possible that you are going to be in Jacksonville on Saturday night and not in Las Vegas?
The pay-per-view is Sunday night in Orlando. I'm leaving right after the fights and getting on a red eye and flying to Orlando Sunday morning.
That's right. It's in Orlando. Okay. Wait. So where are you going? Oh, you're going now for TV.
Yeah. Dynamite's tonight at 8 o'clock. I'm heading up to Jacksonville. I'll head home right after that, get home at like 3 a.m. and catch a 6:30 flight out tomorrow morning. So I'm good to go. Okay.
I thought you were going to do the thing where you kind of abstain and you stay out of it and you stay back home. You don't want to get involved. It's too personal. You're not doing that.
I mean, when it's two guys who are on our team at the time fighting each other, that's generally my philosophy because it's kind of like a no-win situation for me. But, hey, we got one guy on our team and one guy who's not on our team. So it's a fight.
Can you describe how you feel? What are your emotions going into this fight on Saturday?
The bigger the fight, and this is a big fight.
Yeah.
There's no other around it. This is a big fight. So the bigger the fight, then it's really just nervous. You feel nervous for the guys who are in big fights because, it's hard to get excited for a fight when you know how much is on the line for the person fighting. Now, MMA is a very unforgiving sport. You go out there and you're winning and you're on top of the world and opportunities are throwing themselves at you. You go and lose a big fight and, it's kind of an unforgiving crowd. They think you suck. You go to the bottom of the line. There's a lot riding on a fight like this, especially with all the buildup of something like this. So I'm nervous.
But it does, you've been in big fights. You've had guys in big fights, right? Your team has been involved in the biggest of fights, title fights, guys and gals. Does this one feel different because it's so personal?
It feels different just because of how long Jorge's been on the team, how much he means to a lot of the team, how invested a lot of people are on the team that have taken a lot of what's going on personally. From my standpoint, I try not to get too high with the wins and too low with the losses, but it's hard to take the personal element out for the guy. I know how much this fight means to Masvidal and it's a big fight for the team. Every fight's big for our team, but when the team loses fights, there's fights the following weekend. We got 3 more guys fighting that night that are all in big fights. So there's always the next thing for the team, but it's hard to remove yourself from the individual. So, yeah, Masvidal's got a lot riding on this one.
Considering all of that, any concern that he'll be too emotional in there?
I think that plays to George's benefit. I think if you look over George's career, the times where he's put on uninspiring performances or just kind of when he gets bored out there or just wants to see how good his defense is. And he sometimes, I've kind of referred to as a boxing mentality where, Floyd can go out there and make the guy miss 99.9% of the shots. And people are like, man, he's a master. He's a maestro. Wow. How amazing was his defense? But you go out there and you apply that into a 3 or 5 round MMA fight and people are like, that's fucking boring. And the guy who threw 10 times more punches, even though he landed less, still gets the nod. And I think that George being, so emotionally involved in this fight, I think it plays into him. I think he's going to go out there more aggressive and it's going to behoove him.
Do you recall the first time you met Masvidal?
No. It's 17, 18 years ago.
Wow.
No, I don't remember what I had for breakfast.
Okay, let me ask you, are you, if you can answer honestly, are you surprised that he became the star that he became? Let's be honest, 10 years ago, the trajectory wasn't going this way, right? Even 5 years ago. And now he's become one of the biggest stars in the sport, one of the biggest draws in the sport. Are you surprised by the heights that he has reached?
Absolutely stunned, flabbergasted.
Oh, really?
I grabbed him one time at the gym when he was just doing things the wrong way. And I grabbed a couple of the young guys and said, if you want to screw up your career, do what George does. If you want to waste all the talent in the world like this guy has, do what George does.
Wow.
And I guess I was wrong. But, he tells a story that he went down there to South America and did that reality show and spent all that time under the stars thinking about it to himself and reinventing himself and figuring out and cracking the code and everything's going to be different. And I just thought he was full of shit. And, man, he was right. Something clicked in him. He changed it. He always had the talent, always had the ability. He's a smart fighter. You don't realize how athletic George is unless you actually sit there and watch him do strength and conditioning next to other guys who, have the more traditional studly athletic body. But George blows guys away. He's got the whole package. He just had never put it together. And after a certain amount of time and not putting it together, you don't think a guy's ever going to put it together again. So, yeah, when he did it, I was pretty surprised.
I appreciate you saying that. When he was messing up and you told those guys, like, if you want to blow it, do what he does, what was he doing? Like, how bad was it?
It's just, he was snickering. If I recall at the time when I did it, thinking I was busting his balls, because it's kind of the relationship I have with George over the years. He's a funny guy and he likes to bust it up. But it just seemed like one opportunity after another. He would lose fights that he could win. He, it was always by split decisions. I mean, George was very rarely did you ever see George get outclassed in a fight. It's just, and whether you're fighting down to the level of competition or you're just doing enough to win, or you're out there just thinking, hey, I'm going to make this guy miss and look bad because that's cool. I don't really know how to put my finger on it. He was never living up to his talent because his talent is elite.
Do you remember when you first met Colby?
Yes.
What's the story there?
Colby came down with a group of people we brought down years back when we were trying to elevate the level of wrestling in our gym. And we asked for some applicants from recent college graduates, high-level college wrestlers, bring them down. We were going to put them up and let them stay in our apartments and teach them to fight. And we thought it would just be a way to increase the level of wrestling in a room. And he sent in an application like a bunch of other guys, and we picked him out. He came down for a tryout, and everybody was pretty impressed by what he brought, and just kind of went from there.
Are you surprised at the star that he has become?
No. I think it was apparent pretty early on to most of the guys at our gym that he had a talent, he had a knack for this sport. He was going to be a difficult puzzle to solve for just about anybody.
So this is what's really interesting about this story. You guys have told the story before. We don't have to go through it. He's kind of going through the UFC, somewhat of like a vanilla wrestler, if you will, interchangeable. And they say like, hey, we're reaching the end of the road here. Your career, your run in the UFC might be on the line. And that kind of like, makes him start thinking he has to do something. He has to, up the volume. He's got to, become this character. He becomes the character. We know the story. Knowing how big of a pro wrestling fan you are, am I correct in assuming that you had a part in creating the character that is Colby Covington that we see today? Because it's right out of pro wrestling, right? That's what he's always been accused of.
I may have put a little ingredient or two into the early mix of what you see now. I didn't think Dr. Frankenstein was going to come along and add every other ingredient in the world to it and make it blow up the way it blew up. I mean, it's one thing shitting on a particular country or a particular guy to get under people's skins and get yourself noticed. It's another thing to take it to the next level and shit on every single person in the sport and everybody in every other sport, and men and women and people in different weight classes, and then people in your own gym. And, if I had seen it going down that direction and knew then what I know now about what a distraction it would be for our gym, I probably would have tried to insert myself a little differently into that equation. So
that being said, do you regret any involvement in the building of this Colby Covington character?
Well, I mean, if the story had gone the way it looked like it was going to go and he had one fight left and then was going to be unemployed and looking to go fight somewhere else versus what he's accomplished and the money he's made and the notoriety he's gained, positive or negatively, I think it worked out pretty damn well for Colby. So I think some of the initial advice that I may have given him was probably sound advice at the time.
Do you remember when it started to get uncomfortable for you? Like what the, that first kind of comment or situation where you were like, this is not really exactly what I had in mind?
Yeah, it got uncomfortable when it started being directed at other people in our gym. When he first got back from Brazil after the Damian Maia fight, it was what it was. And a couple of people were, rubbed the wrong way. And a couple of the coaches on the team were getting blown up by people from back in Brazil. Like, what are you doing? Stand up for our country, you piece of shit. You need to kick this guy out. How are you not fighting this guy? That was easy to overcome. I just grabbed everybody and sat him down and said, look, here's what the story is. Here's what he's doing. He's trying to get himself, out in front of this and get himself noticed and make some money on his own. It's out of the gym. What happens outside the gym is outside the gym. Inside the gym, we're not American, Brazilian, this, that. We're just American top team. It's your team. And that was easy. That was an easy sell. Once stuff started getting directed at Masvidal and Dustin and Joanna and it started becoming internal, that's when it got uncomfortable, and it got uncomfortable quick. I mean, you need to be able to walk into your gym, and that's got to be your safe spot. That's going to be a comfortable zone where everybody's there to help each other. And when it gets the other way, it became a distraction pretty quick.
Was there ever a point where you thought you might lose the gym? Like the fact that, all hell would break loose and not lose the gym, like you would lose the guys, like it would just lose control. Did you ever fear that?
I mean, early on, I just figured I could fix it. That's okay. We'll come up with some parameters. We'll come up with some rules. We'll talk to the guys. We'll fix it. When I realized that wasn't going to work, no, I just figured I'd lose both fighters, which we did at one point. At some point, you got to say the gym's bigger than this guy or that girl or both of these guys. So at one point, I just told them both to hit the bricks.
That was around 2 years ago, right?
It was just before the pandemic, I think.
Okay. And what led to that decision? Because that's a big deal to let go of Jorge in particular, right? He'd been with you forever. What leads to you to say both you guys are out of here?
Just trying to fix it, trying to come up with something that works, and then having both guys just basically do whatever they wanted to anyway. And then we finally set an ultimatum at the gym and said, unless you have a bout agreement signed to fight each other, I don't want to see anybody in the gym's name in anybody else's mouth in the media. If anybody talks shit about somebody else in the gym and brings any negativity into our gym, no questions asked, you're gone. You're just going to leave. I don't care who you are. And I think it took maybe an hour and a half from the time we set that rule till Masvidal went out. And I guess he doesn't do well with ultimatums. So he came right out and put Colby on blast, and then Colby responded. And a couple hours after I saw that, I just sent them both a text.
And what'd you say? Do you remember? What'd you write?
Yeah, I said I liked you guys both better when you were fighting in prelims. We were broke as shit, and you cared more about the gym than you did about yourselves. Neither one of you are welcome back. I hope you fight each other soon, and I hope you beat the shit out of each other.
What did they respond?
Colby responded back, I understand, appreciate everything you did for me, and I'll do whatever you think's best for the team. Masvidal called me and said, you out of your mind? You can't kick me off this team. I've been here longer than anybody. I'm third in line to take over this gym when a couple of you guys die. I'm not going anywhere. And, just played a little bit of a cat and mouse game for a few months. And I just said, dude, you're not coming back. It's just not happening. And he was gone for maybe 3 months or so before I finally caved in, and, he ended up back.
Did Colby try to come back?
No, Colby said, I get it. I know. I understand my personality and the path I've chosen may not fit well in a big gym setting like this. And if you don't want me there and you don't think it's good for the team, I'll go somewhere else. And I knew when he left, he wouldn't be back. And I think it's worked out better for him.
Had he asked you to come back like Masvidal did, would you have let him come back 3-4 months later?
I don't know how I could have made that work. So no, I don't think that ever would have happened. But I knew that he wouldn't have come back if somebody asked him to come back. Once he got in a situation that was more tailored around him and it could be, Team Colby instead of American Top Team, I knew that would work out better for him. And I think it has. And Masvidal just kept calling and saying, hey man, I'm coming back. Tomorrow's good. When am I coming back? And, guys on the team were asking me, and, I'm letting Mike Brown drive down to Miami after hours to go help Masvidal at home. And Brownie's calling me at midnight saying, I'm driving home from Miami at midnight. God damn it. If I got to be awake, I'm going to keep you awake. And, at one point I think I sent a group text to my kids asking if they wanted to go to dinner that night. And two of them responded back and said, sorry, promise Masvidal I wouldn't talk to you anymore until you let him back at the gym. And I was like, my God, I think I'm going to end up tapping out on this one. So he broke me down.
Wow. That is, and when you brought him back, did you have a heart-to-heart with him?
No, I mean, there's really, what's there to discuss? I mean, it was just his issue with Colby.
Right.
And Masvidal he sees things one way. You're not going to convince Masvidal that what he did, wasn't right. It's just the way he is. He's not going to play games, and it's not a shtick for him, and he's not working anybody. It just is what it is with Masvidal. And, if I said, change this, do that, he's going to be like, fuck you. I'm not doing that. I'm me. This is who I am. But with that said, I've fucking been here longer than anybody else. Let me back in the gym, motherfucker.
Right. And you did. He told a story to ESPN earlier this week. It ran earlier this week about them kind of having a face-to-face. And he said, meet me at the sushi restaurant and all this stuff. And Colby didn't show up, all that. I'm sure you've seen the story. I'm sure you know all about the story. Were you there that day when they had their face-to-face?
I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. Whenever anybody wanted to tell stories about stuff like that over the last few years, I've just said, leave me the hell out of it. Not interested. If I want drama, I'll turn on AEW on Wednesday night at 8:00 on CBS.
By the way, what about Friday nights on TNT?
I like my Rampage too.
Okay.
I'm with you. Thanks for the plug.
No
I'm sure
problem.
Tony appreciates that.
Yes, of course. Wednesdays, it's actually one of my favorite things to do, by the way. I've said it on this show. Come home. I'm done my shows Monday, Wednesday. I'll watch my AEW on Wednesday. I'm a big fan.
I'm sure they're happy to have your viewership.
Okay, now back to that. Have you ever seen them go back and forth? Like, did you ever see them get really, really, in each other's face? Did it ever get tense in the latter stages of the time that they were there together?
Yeah, it got to the point where every day at the gym would have to be coordinated amongst the coaches as to who was coming when and who was training with who, just to make sure they didn't have to cross paths. I mean, we got a 40,000 square foot gym, and I'm worried about who's going to be training in what section of the gym with who, and who's going to be walking through the door at what time, and who's going to be there just in case it gets out of hand and they try going at each other, which happened. And it got to that point. I'm like, what am I doing? This just isn't going to work.
Did you have any fighters who told you, if Colby doesn't leave, I'm not coming back?
Dustin Poirier and Colby had their run-ins, and Dustin is much like Masvidal, where he's just not, there's just one way to do things for him, the way he sees things right and the way he sees things wrong. So yeah, I think it got to the point where Poirier was pretty close to probably not wanting to train at our gym anymore and having to deal with that situation with Colby. It was kind of all combusting at the same time.
When's the last time you spoke to Colby?
Probably in a phone call right when I told him he had to leave, and he ended up calling me back. He texted me and then he called me. We talked a little bit. A couple texts since then back and forth, but that's about it. It's been a while.
Cordial texts?
Yeah, I mean, if I saw Colby in a restaurant right now, I'd walk up and say, hello, how you doing? I think the response would be similar. I mean, I understand why he's doing what he's doing. I don't think he had the best interest of the team in mind. I think he could have changed it up a little bit and been just as effective. I think he could have shit on whatever country his opponent was from and jumped aboard the MAGA train and pissed off half the country in his love of Donald Trump. And I think everything would have been fine for him. I don't think he needed to add everything else to the mix, but obviously he did. And it works for him. And, when you combine it with the fact that he's going to win just about every fight he has, because he's a really talented fighter, it works for him. It just works better in a smaller gym without a million other targets that you feel the need to attack.
You're a great person to ask this question too because of your love of pro wrestling. You're a student, a historian. Is he a good heel in your opinion?
You see the reaction he gets. You can listen to what people say about it online, or you can listen to the reaction he gets when he walks to the cage. So I think when he walks to the cage on Saturday night and Kurt Angle's music plays and everybody's chanting "You suck," I think he's pretty good heel.
And so, do you think this will be one of those situations? We've seen these bad blood fights, and then they hug it out, and it kind of ruins the whole thing. What do you think happens on Saturday after the fight, regardless of what goes down?
There is not a chance in the world of those guys hugging it out at the end of that fight. I will be the most surprised person in that arena, in that state, in this country, in the world, if those two guys hug it out at the end of that. It's just not possible.
Do you have any concerns, like press conference, weigh in, that it might get ugly here this week?
Concerns to the extent that, the commission might have to get involved and sanction somebody, or it could endanger the fight, or just concerns that something's going to blow up, because something will blow up. You put those two in front of each other. Yeah, something will, it's not going to be a nice little face off. Dana's, hopefully he got his rest over the weekend, because he's probably going to have to jump in front of some guys.
It seems like the impetus of this issue with Masvidal is that Colby didn't pay Paulino Hernandez, who he thinks very highly of, like a father figure to him. Did you have that same issue with Colby? Like, was he not paying other people? Did you ever have to step in there?
Well, our fighters just pay our gym a percentage, and our coaches get paid out of that. Paulino's different. Paulino's got his own place. He's down in Miami. He just helps a couple select fighters, and he makes his own deal with them. So I don't know what happened with Colby and Paulino. I would not be involved in that. Paulino's not the type of guy that would ever come to me and say somebody owed him money and didn't pay him. He just wouldn't. He would deal with it on his own. And knowing him, he would just say, screw that guy, and walk away and never say a word about it to anybody. Masvidal's a little bit of a different breed, as he said. So, no, I wasn't involved in it.
Okay. What about paying the gym?
Oh, Colby always paid our gym.
Okay.
I mean,
just curious, because that seems to be like the crux of the issue here. One last thing on the fight. What would you say to people who are like, this is coming a little too late for Jorge? He's coming off the first knockout loss of his career. Colby's younger. He's got that style. He's relentless. Do you I think it's a valid point to make, right? You come off the first knockout loss of your career. You might be a little gun shy. It's a tough match. Colby, as you said, is a tough matchup for anyone.
You think George is going to be gun shy of getting knocked out by Colby?
No, I don't know, but it's a mental thing, right? George St. Pierre got, knocked out by Matt Serra, and, the talk was that he changed his style. He was a little more timid. He was a little more conservative, if you will. So I'm just curious if these things have crossed your mind.
No, that hasn't crossed my mind in the slightest. George and Colby are both elite guys. Somebody told me that Usman broke down the fight and just nailed it. He said that Masvidal is going to be a lot harder to take down and hold down than Colby thinks, and Colby's going to be a lot harder to just box the shit out of than Masvidal probably thinks, because they're both really good at everything. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a really hard fight. I think anybody who thinks that one guy's going to go in and just dominate the other, I think they're wrong. I don't think there's anybody that's just going to go in and dominate these guys. And when you add in the mix of what they feel about each other, I think it's going to make each guy more aggressive, and I think it's going to make the fight more fan-friendly. As far as advantages, obviously you're going to give Masvidal the advantage standing, Colby the advantage on the ground. And as the longer the fight goes, it probably helps Colby, because the guy's got, he's got that third lung. I mean, the guy can just go. So, which may put more impetus on Masvidal to be even more aggressive early on in the fight to try to finish it. So I'd be surprised if this was a boring fight. I'd be surprised if this was a fight where these guys hugged it out at the end. I think it's going to be a violent fight, and I think the guys are going to hate each other just as much when it's over as they do now.
I'll just ask you a couple more things, and then I'll let you go. I think your co-pilot over there is falling asleep from this interview, so I'm not doing a great job. AEW, by the way, tonight on TBS, Dynamite, pay-per-view, Sunday, Revolution. You're involved. We'll get your thoughts on that. But I do want to ask, I haven't asked you this, Amanda Nunes, wwhy did she leave?
Amanda decided she wanted to do something else. I don't know if she's just figuring out her long-term, what she wants to do when she's done fighting and wants to have a gym and a team. She's always told me she wants to get involved in coaching. When she told me that in the past, I thought she meant coaching at the team, which I thought would have been great. Apparently she had other ideas in mind. And bottom line is, we want people at our gym that want to be at our gym. I don't have contracts with any of our fighters. Anybody who doesn't want to be there, they know where the door is. The team goes on. I wish her the best. There's no ill feelings in either direction. She just decided she just wants to control things going forward on her own, and she wants to open up her own place, and power to her.
You used to kind of work with her as well as a manager. Is that no more as well?
Yeah, that's no more as well. I don't work with people that aren't in our gym.
Okay. Do you feel somewhat betrayed by any of this?
No, I don't think anybody or anything is permanent in this sport. It's just, when you're together and you got your time together, you make the most of it. You get the best run possible. Hopefully both sides benefit from it. And when the time's right and somebody doesn't want to be there any longer, see you later. Good luck. Go do what you do, and we'll do what we do.
If she wins that fight in December, do you think she's still there?
If she wins the fight in December, she's still there. Sometimes it takes something dramatic for someone to finally get off their ass and do something they've been thinking of doing for a long time anyway. So she might still be at the gym if she had won that fight. Just didn't, but still within the back of her mind, obviously she was thinking about that as for a long time, doing her own thing and wanted to do her own thing. And if this is what needed to push her in that direction to go do it, so be it.
I reported yesterday that PFL matched Kayla's offer from Bellator. She tweeted last night, "I'm frustrated. I'm beyond frustrated." Can you shed some light? I think the world of Kayla. I think she's one of the best fighters on the planet. Can you shed some light as to why she is frustrated?
Kayla just wants to fight the best. That's just what she wants. It's more important to her than money is. And I think when she had an opportunity to fight somebody that is among the best to ever do it, she got really excited. And I think she was just disappointed, not necessarily to go back to PFL, because PFL is a great company. They pay well. They're getting bigger. They're doing better. I've had lots of people that have gone there and done really well and love that company. And I hope they last forever doing what they're doing. So I don't think that she was disappointed necessarily to be doing business with those guys on the form that they have and their platform. I think she was just disappointed at missing the opportunity to get a fight against a really big name, because I think she thinks she's the best in the world. And I think she would love the opportunity to do it. And I think she would do it for less money if she had that piece of the equation in place. And I think she came close to getting it in her mind and just a little frustrated for it to not come through.
She going to have to ask PFL, like, hey, can you let me take this fight? Much respect, but I want to go over here.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Dana, Connor wants to go do a fight over in Bellator. You don't mind, do you? They're going to do a show in Ireland again.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. Why should people watch the pay-per-view on Sunday, AEW Revolution? Tell us. Give us the hard sell here.
Man, I don't know if anybody's a wrestling fan and in the past and then fell out of love with it, like I kind of did for a little while. AEW will bring you back to where you were before. They've got a little bit of everything. They've got some characters in there. They've got guys that wrestle every style in the world. And if you're not excited to see a dog collar match with MJF and CM Punk, then I don't know what to tell you.
And your involvement?
Yeah, I'm there having a good time. I'm not exactly sure what's going on at the pay-per-view for me. There's some people there I like. There's some people there I don't like. If I get a chance to get on a microphone and talk some smack about somebody I don't like, I'll jump on.
Is Paige going to wrestle?
I would be surprised if you did not see Paige eventually do something in professional wrestling. She got a little taste of it and she liked it. And I think she's a little bit of a natural for it. So, yeah, I would expect her to do something in wrestling sooner rather than later.
What about Junior?
Man, you want to talk about somebody who took to it like a fish to water? That guy was doing stuff the first time he stepped into a ring that had everybody there scratching their head saying, where's this guy been for the last X years? He has some other stuff cranking right now fight-wise, but he really enjoyed his time over there, and I think that's something he's looking at for when he's done competitively fighting that he might get into full-time.
What about Jorge?
I think Masvidal can do anything Masvidal wants. I mean, the guy's
Dana let him, though.
He's unique. He's got a lot of charisma. every time I talk to that guy, he's doing something crazier and crazier. I called him not that long ago, and it was a funny ring, and he answered. I'm like, were you out of the country somewhere? He's like, yeah, I'm in Egypt. I'm like, what the hell are you doing in Egypt? He's like, yeah, I think we're going to do some fights right by the pyramids or something. It's like the guy's just, man, he's got that it factor. Everything fell into line with him and put some rocket fuel into his career. And I wouldn't be surprised if that guy did pro wrestling. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy went on a run and ended up winning the welterweight title. I wouldn't be surprised if that guy ended up getting into politics. That guy can do a lot of things.
Appreciate you doing this, Dan. I know, like I said, I know you don't do a lot of these, although you've been doing a few lately. So that gave me some hope that you would say yes to me. Good luck this evening. AEW, Dynamite, TBS, 8 p.m. Eastern, Rampage, 10 p.m. Eastern on TNT pay-per-view. Sunday in Orlando, Sunday evening Revolution. Then, of course, the big one that we care about most here, UFC 272, your guy, Jorge Masvidal, going up against Colby Covington. Can't wait for it. Appreciate you kind of reliving some of those memories. I'm sure you're going to be happy when this is all over and you don't have to do that anymore. So good luck to you and the team, Dan, and safe travels to Jacksonville.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Take care. There he is, the one and only Dan Lambert, the founder and owner of American Top Team.